Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. All praises. Oh, good and strong, huh? That's right. Man, it's always a blessing to be up in here with y'all, with my people, my loved ones. Good to see each and every one of y'all. Good to see each and every one of y'all. Got any visitors in the house? Let me see. Okay. All right. Uh-oh. Yep. I know you not no longer, huh? She said, no. Okay. All right. Yes, indeed. They OG visitors now. For everybody to get that title, this was the original OG visitor. He been with us for quite some time now. he just been an OG for a while now. No longer a visitor. Indeed. All right. Well, let's get it in. Y'all ready? What's the title of today's lesson? Whoa. Man. Say it one more time, please. Living? Or is it? Learning to be a nation. Learning to be a nation. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy chapter 4. Learning to be, do you know what that means, to learn to be a nation? Let me ask you a question. What are some of the things that you had to learn to be in life? Okay. All praises. Indeed. So it's a lot of things that we figure out that we have to learn to be. A lot of times we don't realize at first that we need to learn to be these things. We kind of think that we just know how. How many of y'all was a kid that you just thought you already knew how to drive before you? Nobody could tell you anything different. How many of y'all thought you knew how to love? And then you found out one day that it was some things you needed to learn. Okay. All right. How many of y'all thought you knew how to please God and how to serve God? And you found out that was something that you needed to learn. Okay. So guess what? A lot of us have to learn how to be who we are as an individual, let alone knowing how to be a nation. Looking at us and kind of knowing the journey and seeing what we've done and where we're at and where we've been, would it be safe to say that we're definitely in a situation where we have to learn to be a nation? Okay. So this is about what it takes to learn to be a nation. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 4. Let's start at verse 1. Let's read 1 and 2.
Deuteronomy. Excuse me. No, I'm good. I was just too close. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 1. Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments.
You know that word statutes, a lot of times we feel more comfortable with saying like laws, but we don't really use that word as much. Anybody ever took the time to kind of delve into that word and see what that word actually means? Or where, the root of it? When you talk about a statute, pretty much you're talking about the law. But the actual word statute, right, which has a root in it, I think it comes from the Latin, I'm not mistaken, the Latin. Stature. When we talk about stature, we talk about a statue, and this is statute. What does a statue do? It stands. So it's regarding something that not only is it a law, but it's telling you, it's giving you an attribute. It's still standing. Because people want to say that the laws are done away with or figure out some way to finesse and, pick and choose what they want. But these are things that are still standing in the eyes of the Most High. So statutes and unto the what?
Unto the judgments.
So now when we talk about the judgments, a lot of times people think when they hear judgments, they only think about, in the law it says if this happens or if you do this, then this is what you get. But we don't realize when we talk about the judgments, this whole book is full of the judgments. This is what happened, this is what people did, or this is what so-and-so did, and this is what happened as a result of. And this is why we say we should be living our lives according to this Bible, because it tells you whatever it is that you choose in life, it gives you what the outcome is going to look like. It tells you what's coming to you, even if it has not come to you yet. All right, go ahead and read, please.
Unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you.
Which I do what?
Which I teach you.
Go ahead.
For to do them.
For to do them what?
That ye may live. And go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers giveth you.
That's the thing. And these are the things that we're supposed to be learning, because the ultimate goal is for us to go back home. But he's saying before you go back home, these are the things that you have to learn. A lot of us don't understand, like, if you really want to get back home, then you need to be a good student. These are things you need to learn and apply. And we need to learn and apply not just as individual lights, but as a collective. Go ahead.
Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you. Neither shall ye diminish.
You can't, don't add to it, he said, and don't diminish it, because there's a lot of people that diminish the Most High's laws. They'll sit there and diminish it in a heartbeat as if certain things are not really that important, but it's thus saith the Lord. And it's crazy how you got all these different conversations. Some people that feel offended and they're like, people diminishing the fringes. Okay, you're right. Maybe you should feel some type of way about that, because they shouldn't diminish fringes. But are you diminishing attitude? Are you diminishing charity? What are you diminishing? Because you shouldn't diminish any of it. In other words, we should make sure that we understand that we hold all the law in the highest esteem and do everything that we can on a day-to-day and on a moment-to-moment basis to uphold everything that's in this book. Because the book tells you in relation to others how you should be and the choices that we should make. All those things are still viable. All those things are things that we still have to make sure that we uphold and that we concentrate and focus on. Go ahead and read.
Ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish aught from it, that ye may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you.
All right, there it is right there. Go to 2 Samuel chapter 23. So we're talking about learning to be a nation. 2 Samuel. This is a very important principle right here. So that was, the most important that, what we just read, in Ecclesiastes, it tells you, chapter 12, I believe, hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear the Most High and do what? Why? This is the whole duty of man. So that's first and foremost. Now watch this, 2 Samuel, chapter 23. 2 Samuel 23. And let's start at verse 1. Let's read 1 through 7.
The book of 2 Samuel, chapter 23, and verse 1. Now these be the last words of David.
Last words of David. Go ahead.
David, the son of Jesse, said, and the man who was raised up on high, the anointed of the God of Jacob, and the sweet psalmist of Israel said.
I don't know if you know anything about David, but David was a big deal and is still a big deal in Israel. That's why he was given that introduction. Now, mind you, these are his last words. Read.
The Spirit of the Lord spake by me, and his word was in my tongue. The God of Israel said, the Rock of Israel spake to me. He that ruleth over men must be just.
This is what he told David, and this is what David is telling Israel. He said, the Most High told me this. He that ruleth over men must be just. Doing what?
Ruling in the fear of God.
Ruling in the fear of God. That means according to God's laws and according to his statutes and judgments. Read.
And he shall be as the light of the morning when the sun riseth, even a morning without clouds, as the tender grass springeth out of the earth by clear shining after rain.
Have you ever been in a situation where you've been outside and you see the sun shining and there are no clouds to inhibit the sun rays, and that sun is giving its light? He said that's what it should be like. That's what he shall be like. In other words, what is that sun? Some of the things that sun does. The Bible says the sun riseth even a morning without clouds, as the tender grass springeth out of the earth by clear shining after rain. Go ahead.
Although my house be not so with God, yet he hath made with me an everlasting covenant.
So what is he saying right here? He's making an acknowledgement. He's acknowledging what? If you know the story of, and what happened as a result of his transgression. Yeah. His house was out of order. They weren't following the Most High in the same way that he followed the Most High. Even the best of them, which became, Solomon, right? Who ended up becoming the next king. And he did great things for Israel, but did he compare to what his father was able to do? No. He fell short, right? So David is making an admission. He said, man, even though I know my house ain't what it should be, but this is what it should look like. Go ahead.
Although my house be not so with God, yet he hath made with me an everlasting covenant.
So he's acknowledging the covenant, and he understood that someone in his house was going to make it right, which you know who that was, right? Who came through his loins, as the scriptures say, right? Go ahead.
Ordered in all things and sure, for this is all my salvation and all my desire, although he make it not to grow.
Now watch what he says in verse 6. Read.
But the sons of Belial shall be all of them as thorns thrust away.
Hold on. But the son of Belial shall be all of them as thorns thrust away. Because what?
Because they cannot be taken with hands.
So let's get an understanding of what this is talking about. Verse 7 to give us even more of an understanding of verse 6. Read.
Verse 7. But the man that shall touch them must be fenced with iron. And
touch who? Go ahead and read it one more time, please.
But the man that shall touch them must be fenced with iron and the staff of a spear, and they shall be utterly burnt with fire in the same place.
So, read verse 6 one more time, please.
But the sons of Belial shall be all of them as thorns thrust away, because they cannot be taken with hands.
So let's get this in context. Remember, we're talking about anybody, or are we talking about whoever leads, whoever rules? So we're still speaking in the same context of rulers. So he talked about a righteous ruler. Now he's talking about wicked leaders. Wicked leaders, right? He says, shall be all of them as thorns thrust away, because they cannot be taken with hands. Meaning what? What is he giving us insight on? But the man that shall touch them must be fenced with iron, meaning you got to have some type of iron suit. You got to have like an Iron Man suit on. And you need a staff of a spear. You know what a spear looks like, right? Spear is on this long staff, on this long stick, and at the end of it, you got this sharp point, right? That you can, thrust, right? He says you're going to need that to deal with these type. So what he's telling you is a very important lesson that Israel needs to learn. Wicked leaders are not easy to get out of power. Not because you wonder, why won't raise your hand if you ever asked that question, why won't the Most High just remove this nigga? Why won't the Most High, we doing the right thing? I done heard it a million times. Why? It seemed like this, he over here prospering, the wicked seem like, he telling you right here, he giving you a good lesson. And that was really a lesson about Israel. He wasn't talking about the other nations. He was mainly talking about Israel. Because you look at the kings that came after that. Remember, it was only one king before David outside of Yahweh. It was only one king, and that was who? And you remember what happened with Saul, right? Then how many, not even of the northern kingdom after the split, after Solomon, and obviously one of David's own house is the one that caused the split in the first place, Solomon. And look what happened with all of the kings of Israel after that. The scriptures say save 3 that were not defective, which was inclusive of David. It was only 2 others. But it was a gang of kings. He said, wicked leaders shall be all of them as thorns thrust away, because they cannot be taken with hands. You know, you ever been in the garden? And you know, my grandma or dad too, but mainly my grandma used to tell us, you know, to get in the garden, we got to pull up weeds, right? You pull them weeds up. You ain't need no gloves. Go on and pull them weeds up, boy. You know, you pulling them weeds up. Let you go and touch that rose bush and think you're going to grab that. Remember what that rose bush looked like, right? Yeah. Yeah, it was certain things that you realize, it'll tear you up. Yeah, it got thorns in it. You can't just grab those things and remove them, think you just going to move them out the way. And it's crazy because he said, look, he says, and they shall be utterly burned with fire in the same place. So when he says they should be utterly burned with fire in the same place, what he's telling you is he's giving you a little insight. Some of these leaders going to be here to the end, and it's going to take that final destruction to burn them up, get them out the way. So stop worrying about them getting out the way, and you got to make sure that you do your job. You got to make sure that you guard the sheep to warn the people. Go from there. Go to the book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 10. I'm all right. I keep sniffing. Ecclesiasticus chapter 10, and let's get verse 1. We're going to read 1 through 4, and then we're going to drop down to 8 and 9.
The book of Ecclesiasticus, chapter 10, and verse 1. A wise judge will instruct his people.
So the Bible says a wise judge will instruct his people. A wise judge. Now, a lot of times when we see the word judge, we kind of flip back to Judge Judy, and we think in that respect. But remember, we had all the judges in the Bible, right? We even have a book of Judges, right? So now, when we talk about a judge and we think about some of the judges, we know what a judge is, right? Those judges were doing what essentially? They were ruling over Israel. They were leading, right? So a wise judge will instruct his people. And the government of a prudent man, what does prudent mean? Say it again. Looks ahead of them. And what do? They just step. Okay. So they're very careful and cautious. Like you said, they set everything in order to make sure that they're making the right steps in the right direction. Right? So it's not somebody that just does things on the fly. This is a person who takes the time to plan, strategize, organize, and make the moves and execute, right? So now, and the government of a prudent man is well ordered. So they're organized. Verse 2.
As the judge of the people is himself.
As however the judge or the leader is himself. Go ahead.
So are his officers.
So are his officers. Read.
And what manner of man the ruler of the city is.
I'm going to tell you what they call this. They call this culture. A lot of times we talk about culture. We're always talking about culture. How many of y'all are big on culture? You hear it all the time. People talking about culture, 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 culture. Raise your hand. Culture, culture, culture. But they don't, a lot of times you miss what the culture is. You think the culture is Mexican and the culture is black. What culture do you have, and what culture should you be looking to cultivate? What's the culture? I'm gonna tell you some of the bigger things that are part of culture that will define your culture. Okay? If you got a leader and they're all in it for themselves, then what do you think the culture is gonna be? Okay, if you have a leader who's really selfless and really about the people, then what do you think the culture is more inclined to be like? Okay, if the culture is to really keep the commandments, then that means the leader must be a keeper of the commandments. Now, if that leader is not serious about the keeping of the commandments and makes all types of excuses and is deceitful, then what do you expect the culture of the people to be? Okay. If the culture is to be all for one and one for all, then what do you think the leader should be on? Okay, so you get it. So a lot of times, we're misstepping and we're looking in the wrong direction when we think the culture is something else, and we focus on where we came from when we should be focused on where we're going. That makes sense. Go ahead and read verse 2.
As the judge of the people is himself, so are his officers. And what manner of man the ruler of the city is, such are all they that dwell therein.
That's what you're going to see. A lot of times we don't realize that. But there is someone in leadership pretty much everywhere you go. How many of you guys like to travel? And the places that you've been, you never stop to think that there is a culture there. Every place you go to, it's not just because you're so-called black, or you used to call yourself black, or you're so-called Latino, or you used to call yourself Latino, right? That you have a certain culture, but it's everywhere you go. If you make a pit stop wherever to travel there and vacation there, whatever the case may be, there's a culture there. Where do you think the culture came from? And currently, the culture that's there, because you may have some places that you can go and learn a little bit about history and things of that nature, but everywhere you go, it has a culture. What is the culture like? And who do you think is the reason for that culture? 9 times out of 10, it's going to be someone at the top, leadership, who's going to give allowance to whatever that culture is. Whatever the spirit of the leadership of the government is there, that's going to be reflective in what you experience in that place. Make sense? Go ahead and read.
An unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited.
So now, when it says an unwise king destroyeth his people, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited. One of the things that you got to remember is when you destroy your own people, what are you doing? You're destroying your resources. Because we're resources to one another, or at least that's what we're supposed to be. We're all supposed to be a resource. So if you're in a situation where you're amongst, but you're not a resource, you don't allow yourself to be a resource, there's nothing that you're willing to give, then that becomes a problem, right? And it becomes even more of a problem if you have a leader who in one way or another destroys the people. The leader can destroy on so many different levels. But it's not something that's progressive and productive when you have a leader that are doing things to destroy the people, because all of us are supposed to be resources. Go ahead.
The power of the earth is in the hand of the Lord, and in due time he will set over it one that is profitable.
So the Most High at the end of the day is going to set the right leaders in place. You got to understand that. Drop down to verse 8 and 9.
Verse 8. Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries,
go ahead,
and riches gotten by deceit.
Riches got by deceit. These are the reasons right here. Dealings, unrighteous dealings, injuries. And when it talks about injuries, imagine what it's talking about. Do you think it just means physical injuries? How many people have been spiritually and mentally damaged? On this earth, what people would you say probably is the most injured of all people on the face of this earth? Can we all agree upon that? And it happens to be who? Okay. And we happen to be who? So guess what? What happens when you go and you visit a hospital? Do you see a whole lot of people that's out the bed that's just ready to get up and go and they don't have any limitations? All right. All right. So whether you go to a hospital, whether you go to a war zone where they just got attacked and you go and see all the survivors, what are you expecting to see? What are you expecting to experience? So we're already at a disadvantage. Which means it gives way even more so for us to understand how important it is for us to be resources for one another, for us to look out for one another, for us to hold each other down and bear one another's burdens. Because, man, we've had, a lot of us, we are survivors. Go ahead.
Because of unrighteous dealings, injuries, and riches gotten by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another.
From one people to another, read.
Why is earth and ashes proud?
So now that's a heck of a question. He says, he says, look, he says, why is earth and ashes proud? Who is he referring to?
His creation.
He said, when you see people, men or women that are proud, he said, why in the world is earth and ashes, meaning you ain't nothing but dirt. Your composition is made of the earth, which means what he's saying is you can easily be destroyed. How in the world are you in a place to be proud when you can easily be destroyed? Go ahead and read.
There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man.
Now, you know how we read that scripture and we talk about the wickedness of a woman, but the Bible says there is no wicked thing more than a covetous man. And guess where you live? It starts with the C. America is what? About what? Capitalism. Capitalism gives way to what? It starts with a C. We just read it. Covetedness. What more can you get? In a capitalistic society, it's not about just having what you have and being content. It's not. And there are actually countries that still exist where they're not capitalist. All we know, because we've lived here all our lives, all we know is capitalism. What can I get next? Some more rims I need to get. That's another car I could get. We're not taught to be like, oh, I got my car. This is my car for life. We're not taught like that. Content for life with certain. We're not taught to be like that. So then there's a mind shift that has to happen for us to really understand when the word says godliness with contentment is great gain. Because it's a choice to be content. And a lot of us haven't made that choice yet on so many different levels. We're always looking, a lot of times our day-to-day is based upon, man, I need to get this, I want this, I want to have this, I want this to be better. And that's what you're consumed with. So the Bible says you got to be careful because it's nothing more wicked than a covetous man. And we see a product of that. We celebrate all these black billionaires, but it's like, man, you a billion and what have you done for your people? Your people are still in what kind of condition, and how many black billionaires do we have now?
Right.
Shh. Think about that. How many millionaires do we have now? Having a million is like having a couple of thousand in your bank account now. A million don't mean what it meant 10, 20 years ago. How many millionaires do we have? We should be able to change a lot of things collectively. And what's being done? And then how far and how are they being revealed, those that have been willing to go above and beyond because of their covetousness to go and do things beyond what you could even imagine, beyond what you could fathom in order to become richer, in order to attain an even higher status.
I got a quick stat for you, Bishop.
Go ahead.
It says about 1,700 people in America are made millionaires every day.
Wow. Wow. I know a lot of y'all thinking in your head, man, how come I can't be part of that 1,700? A day? Now do the multiplication. How many is that in a year? But I'm going to tell you the stat that they don't tell you. They don't tell you how many become a millionaire and then lose that status. Because a whole lot of us, we be coming and then we be the next year, couple of years down the line, we ain't millionaires no more. Yes, sir. 9. Yeah. It was not too long ago, it wasn't that many, nowhere near. And of those, how many of them happen to come from the entertainment industry? Really? Wow. He said all of them. Oh, wow. Sheesh. So what did they have to do to get their billionaire status? That's the question. That's why it says, there is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man. Why?
There is not a more wicked thing than a covetous man, for such a one setteth his own soul to sale.
You see that? That's the reason why. Yeah. I'll sell myself to get the billions. Okay, so, I mean, how rich are you really if you've already sold self? Even though you got a billion to show in your bank account and in assets. But how rich are you really if you sold self? And we know how this works. If you're a billionaire, but somebody else you've been sold to, that means someone else has ownership and possesses you. So are you really? Think about that. And then that's where the term "sell your soul" come from. A lot of y'all, you didn't really know what "sell your soul" meant. These people really sell themselves. Sell themselves as sex slaves and so on and so forth. Sell themselves to Satan all outright. You know, it's a whole lot of idol worship that happens in this country, and a lot of our people are idol worshipers and they don't know it, right? Or they don't really have a good understanding that they're idol worshipers. But now, a lot of these that are in these places and have these opportunities or make these opportunities for themselves or accept these opportunities, they know what false deities that they are sacrificing to. Go ahead.
Because while he liveth, he casteth away his bowels.
While he liveth, he casteth away his bowels. And some people ask that question. They're talking about it might be. It's befitting. You see how much of that is being revealed, right? It's a whole lot of bowels is being cast away.
No diddy.
Man. So now, I just wanted to examine the actual word nation. All right? So it says nation. A large body of people united, listen up, united by common descent, history, culture, or language, inhabiting a particular country or territory. So you got descent, history, culture, language, and where they live. Think about that. This is what it means to be a nation. These are the things that you have that unite large bodies of people. Their descent, if we can agree. Why is it that so-called, it's crazy the fact that we still got to use terminology like black and brown. How long will we have to do that? Black and brown. Right. When it's clear, it tells you who we come from. Right? So now, a lot of times we have a hard time. Imagine, we are a people that has found it to be difficult to agree upon who we all come from. Where we come from, that we descend from a man named Jacob. We come from, yeah. Isn't that crazy? Imagine if the other nations had the same problem. They probably wouldn't be as put together as well as they are. They'd have some of the issues that we find ourselves having, right? What about history? How many times have you been taught history by your oppressors? How much of your history do you really know? You just started learning history once you found out about this thing called the truth that we call the truth. How much of your history do you really know? We're supposed to be united off of our history, having a common history. Culture, there's that word again. That's another thing. Happens a lot. I see it in Israel, where it's like cultural differences. It shouldn't be too many cultural differences if we drop in whatever culture where we came from. It's not that we're not going to have some of those things. And it adds some flavor. Some of those things come from way, way back, beyond some of the bywords that we begin to call ourselves. But at the same time, none of that should be more important than the culture that we're supposed to be creating, right? All right. And then the language. That's another thing that's very important, right? You have to have a common language. And because Israel speaks multiple different languages, a lot of times we allow that to be a barrier and something to divide us, when it's really hopefully something that should be able to unite us. But you got some people that don't want to have anything, and then some people that it's a lot of wild stuff in Israel. Because the fact that you do have a common language, you do have English, even though that's not our language, but that's a way to communicate, because that's what it's really about, how to communicate. Now, there's still things we can learn from our original language, and the Most High has been very merciful and gracious, because even within this thing called the Bible in the book of Psalms, I don't know if you knew that, but like the characters from, what the world calls Hebrew, but our original, that came from our original language, they're, in this book. So there has to be some significance in those things. It can be helpful in some ways, which when you do some studying, the languages that are involved with the making of this Bible can be very useful in our studies and in our understanding. But having the common bond of being able to communicate through the language that most of us do speak, which happens to be English in this region, and a lot of English is spoken in the world, right? We just happen to be children of the captives who were captive here in what we call Babylon, which is the US of A, right? And the language that we speak happens to be the language that is more so put out there amongst all the different places on earth. But the purpose for that language is to be able to communicate and to come into a like-mindedness, to work to be on one accord. And then last but not least, inhabiting a particular country or territory. And that's what we're trying to get back to, because we are so scattered, Go from there. Go to the book of Ezekiel, chapter 37. Ezekiel 37. Let's see. Hold on. Yep, go ahead. Get that. 37 and start at verse 15. We're going to read 15 through 26.
The book of Ezekiel, chapter 37 and verse 15.
Listen up.
The word of the Lord came again unto me, saying, Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah and for the children of Israel his companions. Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all the house of Israel his companions.
So now we're talking about what? We're talking about two sticks. Those sticks represent who? Northern and Southern Kingdom, right? Which we know in general. Okay. Sometimes within the community of Israel, different beliefs in terms of how we identify that. Some people go as far as to say, oh, if you're from this place, then you're of this tribe, which we don't subscribe to that, because there's no way to put. Now, lately, a lot of people have come out and said, yeah, I'll be honest, you really don't know, but we kind of use it because. Scripture says be careful because you better not add anything or take anything away, right? So, yeah, that's the thing. But now, so-called blacks, so-called indigenous people of the Americas, and what about even those that are scattered throughout all of the other different places in the earth, right? But we tend to, right, because we're right here, a lot of times we focus a lot more on what's here, right? What we see here, even though we know that there's more because the Bible literally says scattered throughout every country. And we've been to a couple of countries ourselves, right? And we have congregations, we have family, we have those that are a part of our organization that happen to live in other countries all over the earth, right? So now let's read.
Verse 17. And join them one to another into one stick, and there shall become one in thine hand.
One in thine hand, read.
And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, Wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these?
What do you mean by this? Read.
Say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribes of Israel his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick. And they shall be one in mine hand. And the sticks whereon thou writest shall be in thine hand before their eyes. And say unto them, Thus saith the Lord God, Behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the heathen, whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side, and bring them into their own land. And I will make them one nation, and the land upon
So hold on. He said, I will make them what?
And I will make them one nation.
Not two, but he's going to make them one, which means they were more than one, or recognized as more than one. Now, mind you, how many nations were the children of Israel did they become before they became one again? Huh? Raise your hand if you think two. Raise them high. Come on. Only a couple? Raise your hand high if you think it's two. Okay, so they became two, and that was it. Two nations. How many say 12? Oh, goodness. All right. You say two? We'll find out in a minute. Go ahead and finish reading.
Verse 22. And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all. And
so say, read that one more time, slow form, please.
And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king.
So hold on, what did y'all get from that? What did you get from that? One nation. What else? That's all you got from that? Huh? We ain't got there yet, have we? He said, I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel. Meaning what? Huh? It hasn't happened yet. Why would you say that? Okay, there you go. Go ahead and read.
And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all. And they shall be no more two nations.
And they shall be no more two nations. Go ahead.
Neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all. Neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions. But I will save them out of all their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So shall they be my people, and I will be their God.
So now he said, and I will save them out of all of their dwelling places wherein they have sinned, right? So we talked about what it means to be a nation, right? One of those things was what? Let's read the bottom of 22. It says, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms anymore at all. What's the difference between being recognized as a kingdom versus being recognized as a nation? Is it? We gonna see verse 24.
Verse 24. And David my servant shall be king over them, and they all shall have one shepherd. They shall also walk in my judgments and observe my statutes and do them. And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt, and they shall dwell there. They shall dwell therein, even they and their children and their children's children forever. And my servant David shall be their prince forever.
Go ahead.
Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant.
Hold on, read that one more time, verse 26.
Moreover, I will make a covenant. I will make a covenant of peace with them.
He will make a covenant of what?
Of peace with them.
Go ahead.
It shall be an everlasting covenant with them.
Are we in that covenant of peace yet? Now, is that the first or the second covenant? You sure? Would you be willing to risk everything in your bank account on that? Everything?
You should have seen their faces. Israel was like this.
Hey, get the paperwork. So off top, here's the thing. Let me help you out a little bit. Just as soon as you see the word covenant, like something hardwired in you that tells you that can only be two agreements. That's what a covenant is. It's an agreement. There doesn't have to just be two agreements. There's been more than two agreements that have been spoken about in this word. You do know that, right? So at that time, that has not happened yet, we will go into an agreement of peace. All right? We haven't got there yet. Go ahead and read.
Moreover, I will make a covenant of peace with them. It shall be an everlasting covenant with them.
What? And that's how we know it hasn't happened yet. An everlasting covenant with them. And what else?
And I will place them and multiply them, and will set my sanctuary in the midst of them forevermore. Mm-hmm. My tabernacle also shall be with them. Yea.
I don't need that. I appreciate that. That's all I needed. Go real quick. Go to 1 Maccabees chapter 1. 1 Maccabees chapter 1, start at verse 7.
The book of 1 Maccabees chapter 1 and verse 7. So Alexander reigned 12 years and then died. And his servants bare rule, everyone in his place. And after his death, they all put crowns upon themselves. Mm-hmm. So did their sons after them many years.
What nation of people did this happen to be? Esau, Edom. Go ahead.
And evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root.
So what happened when Esau came into rulership? Evils were multiplied in the earth. Read.
And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been in hostage at Rome. He reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying.
Hold on, these men came out of what? In those days, they were out of Israel. What? So, are all the wicked men extinct out of Israel now? No, where'd they go? Where? Where they go? Surely none of the ones that I see on social media, not one. Couldn't be. Go ahead and read.
In those days went there out of Israel wicked men who persuaded many, saying, let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow.
So they started making covenants, more and more covenants, not just the first and the second one. All these covenants, all these agreements that started getting See, we call it by different names now. So names that we're more comfortable with, like contracts. You know what I'm saying? And sponsorships and endorsements and all kind of stuff. Like, you know, we got agreements. You know what I'm saying? I got a contract. You know what I'm saying? We're more comfortable with those types of words. Covenant is a bit much. And they started making these covenants with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. It's easier when we dealing with the other nations. Don't Israel say that even to, man, you dealing with your own. It's better when you dealing with the other nations. At least you know you're going to get your paycheck. You know what you're gonna get good service. You're going to get good service and all of these things that we still say to this day. They were saying way back then. Verse 12.
So this device pleased them well.
Uh-huh.
Then certain of the people were so forward herein that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen.
What? Go ahead.
Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen.
According to the customs of the heathen. Not the way Israel was going to do things and our forefathers had done back when. Now they want to do things according to the customs of the heathen. Read.
And made
themselves uncircumcised. Read.
Uncircumcised.
Meaning like what? Like the physical circumcision. You know what that looks like. So in a spiritual sense, because you can't physically make yourself uncircumcised. To spiritually make yourself uncircumcised, what do? The veil that was taken off, you put it back on. How many people have you seen go back into the world? They knew that they was an Israelite. They was practicing keeping these worlds. And they say, all right, take me back in. They pull it right. And you ask yourself, you like, now I know you know that you shouldn't be celebrating Christmas and you shouldn't be doing X. You shouldn't be wearing that. You shouldn't be acting in that kind of way. How in the world could they go back to doing that? They put it back on. Put it back on. Go ahead.
And made themselves uncircumcised and forsook the holy covenant.
And they forsake the holy covenant. They forsake that. Now, this ain't just any agreement, that holy agreement. They say, because what's the agreement? The agreement was really spelled out in Deuteronomy chapter 28, right? And they say, it is what it is. We already cursed anyway. Some of them, they find solace in certain things. That's why you got certain beliefs out there. All Israel going to be saved. Got that out there because anybody that can make themselves to believe that, guess what? I can go ahead and mess up and I'm still going to get the kingdom. So, I might go through a little bit of chastisement, but I'm going to still make it. And Israel will find ways because, even in this walk right now, I'm looking at people right now who've had situations and you've reasoned yourself to be able to do some nonsense before in this truth. You knew. So that's what they do. Okay. And what else? Enjoying themselves to what?
And join themselves to the heathen.
Join themselves to the heathen. How they join themselves to the heathen? They go back to all the same customs that the heathen presented to them. They go back to Christianity and everything else. Sometimes they think they ain't went back to Christianity, but their practices say Christianity. Their belief system say it. They go back to being, same way they was when they was in the world. Go ahead and read.
And were sold to do mischief.
Drop down to verse 20.
Verse 20. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 143rd year and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary and took away the gold altars and the candlestick of light and all the vessels thereof.
So he took, it was a giant menorah that belonged to the nation of Israel that was in the temple amongst these other things, the Ark of the Covenant. And it says they went in and they took all those things. They took the wind out of Israel. Like, oh my God. Because those things was important to us. Now what's so crazy about it, a lot of y'all up in here and y'all be here Sabbath after Sabbath. And that stuff don't matter to you because you don't know really much about it. So you don't feel no kind of way. that stuff is in the possession of your enemies to this day. You don't really understand the significance of those things and how much they meant to the nation. And somebody coming and taking that and you know, robbing us of those things, how it made the nation feel at that time. Go ahead.
Verse 22, and the table of the showbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crowns, and the gold ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was great mourning in Israel in every place where they were, so that the princes and the elders mourned, the virgins, the young men were made feeble.
The virgins and the young men, the young folks was made feeble, meaning because the young people are usually pretty fiery. You go in the streets right now, the young people are pretty fiery. So that changed everything. It like took the wind out of the nation. Go ahead.
And the beauty of the women was changed.
And even the beauty of the women was changed. Because how can you continue to go on the way you were going on? People have to take on a whole different mindset, whole different, people, the only place where they felt, that was a place of refuge where everybody could run to. If nothing else, they understood this is where we go to every time it's time to hold a feast. This is a place of safety. This is the capital. This is the main spot. It's the temple. And now the heathen that took that over. Go ahead.
Verse 25, therefore there was great mourning in Israel in every place and where they were. So the princes and the elders mourned, the virgins and the young men were made feeble, and the beauty of the women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness.
What do you think that she was sitting in the marriage chamber waiting on? All right. To make those marriages official, to have relations, right? That became, and you know how Israel get excited about that activity. It was such a time of heaviness to the point where that didn't even matter at that point. You got to understand, you don't really get it because you've lived all your life in a place where your enemies have controlled everything, told you what you could and could not do. You've lived all your life being controlled by Esau. Your nation, you grew up with a history of understanding that it wasn't long. You're not far removed from the people that you look to, your elders, your fathers, your grandfathers, having to submit to the basest nation on the face of the earth that are now at the top. And how they made your fathers and your grandfathers bow down to them, literally. We're not far removed from that. That's what's in your spirit. So it's hard for you to relate to this. Go ahead and read.
Verse 28, the land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion.
They did like, where do we go from here? What do we do from here? This is pretty much like all we had. Go ahead.
And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit.
It's crazy. Israel still fall for that to this day. Go ahead.
And spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and the children took they captive, and possessed the cattle.
He had already robbed us, came in, spoke good to us. We thought it was on the up and up. We about to have something different happen, and then he rob us again and do us even more dirty, and then take our women and our children. And then you think they just took them just to be friends or something? Or more than likely he took them as sex slaves. And, What do you think was going on in the minds of Israel at that time when this was happening? How do you think the people felt? Imagine we wake up and by the end of the day, all of our wives and children are gone. Esau's taking all our wives and children. What would that look like? Go ahead and read.
Verse 33, then builded they the city of David
Then they took the capital city and they started building on the city and they took over the city and they started putting up walls and things of that nature so nobody could penetrate and try to go ahead.
Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall and with mighty towers and made it a stronghold for them.
Made it a stronghold for them. Once upon a time, that was a stronghold for all us. You know, we's fighting from the number one. That literally, you got to know about where you come from. City of David, you know, talking about Mount Zion. Mount Zion don't look like a mountain that you see over there. Like the mountain, it was a mount, but it was flat surface, and the city was literally on. The temple was sitting on that. And if nothing else, we was protecting that. They took that. Say, hey, it's ours now. Debo. Read.
And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein.
This is the place that the Most High lets it be known. He said, I'll choose this place above all places on the face of the earth. You know, some of y'all talking about y'all want to go some places. I want to go to Santorini. I want to go here, there. He said, ain't none of that compared to Zion. And they took that from us. Go ahead. Place where the Most High said, he said, that's my spot. When I'm on earth, this is where I'm at. They took that from us. Go ahead.
They stored it also with armor and victuals. And when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there. And so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary and evil adversary to Israel.
Go ahead.
Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them. Whereupon the city was made a habitation of strangers and became strange to those that were born in her.
All of a sudden, our home, our place of refuge became the home of our enemies and the stronghold of our enemies. Our people didn't know what to do. So our people started, like, I don't know where to go. Begin to scatter and migrate and be dispersed into all different regions. Because it's like, what do we do now? Like if the Most High, you know, he to the point where, you know, Zion no longer is in our hands. Like the heathen got Zion. Like, what do we do? Go ahead. I mean, we're still fighting against each other now. Yep. Go ahead, read.
Her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mournings. Her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt.
So right now we come together predominantly on what? Sabbaths, right? It was really no different back then. So imagine now, you know, their ability to come together and their opportunity. Now you got the heathen that's stopping all of that. Like, what do you do? Now it's starting to make more sense how we became estranged, how we began to not think of ourselves as a nation and not be a nation. Read.
As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to the whole kingdom that all should be one people.
Now, while this is happening, now all of a sudden Antiochus, he come back again. Now, this is the same one they shouldn't trust, right? Because he just tricked Israel, attacked them yet again, destroyed them, took the women and the children, the slaves. Now, this is really more so, a lot of them, they looked at this like a mercy, which it shouldn't have been a mercy. It should have been of the utmost disrespect to our people. After all of that he did, then it says, moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be what? All right, well, let's all be one people. Let's be one people. Let's be one people. Read.
that all should be one people, and everyone should leave his laws.
Should do what?
Should leave his laws.
Most of the other people don't care as much as the children of Israel cared about the laws, because the Most High told us, like, those laws are the thing that are going to keep you in good standing with me. So, of course, they're going to say everybody. If everybody does it, that old trick that you do to kids. Well, everybody's taking a piece of this nasty chocolate. So if everybody's doing it, why don't you take a piece too? Everybody's doing it. Ain't that one of the oldest tricks in the book that they still try to do with kids? Yeah. Everybody else is doing it. Everybody else, so, why not? Go ahead.
And everyone shall leave his laws. And all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion and sacrificed unto idols and profaned the Sabbath.
Sacrifice unto idols and profane the Sabbath. Now, what do you have going on? Who's keeping? Just like from Adam on down through his progeny, everybody didn't stay on the path, but it was because of the sons of God that stayed on the path is the reason why our people were able to be preserved and we were able to pick back up and get right with the Most High. Now you got a situation where they're no longer keeping the Sabbath and they're serving idols. This is how it happened. Read.
For the king has sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and forbid burnt offerings, and sacrifice, and drink offerings in the temple.
You see how that worked? For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land. It's just like you get the messages through your mail when they tell you certain things that you better do, and you like, ooh, this come from the IRS. Or this come from so-and-so, and you like, man. And then they forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice because they want to do what? And drink offerings in the temple. What they want to do? Stop us from serving the Most High, from giving those offerings and sacrifices, and that they should do what?
And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days.
Profane those days now. That's how we stop keeping those days. Before you know it, you joining in. You ain't got nothing else. You might as well join in with us. Do Bacchus with us. As a matter of fact, here's a gift. These heathens treating you like you ain't nothing and just giving you hell in life. And this one day, they say, oh, yeah, you like one of us. Oh, celebrate with us. And you like, okay, I'm just one day, I'm going to accept this. I'm happy to just not be persecuted and, Go ahead, read.
And pollute the sanctuary and holy people. Set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts. That they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation.
Why was it important for them to make us to leave our children uncircumcised? Because if you don't get circumcised, then what? You're not officially a part of the Abraham covenant or the Abrahamic covenant. So now, can you get salvation without being a part of that covenant according to these scriptures? So what were they trying to do? Disconnect us from who? There you go. Go ahead.
Set up altars and groves, Salaki, verse 48, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances.
So they purposely, do they not still do that to this day on television and through everything that you consume? It's like no way to get around uncleanness. And they do that for what reason? To the end that they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. How did the ordinances change? Well, every year, all you knew was the first of the year is January the 1st. You know, and that's right after we come off of celebrating Christmas and all of that nonsense. It was hardwired into you. And to this day, some of our people have a hard time getting out of that because that's all you've known all your life. All your fondest memories. You can go back and show pictures of you, you know what I'm saying, celebrating these different idolatrous days. Go ahead.
Verse 50, and whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die.
And they was killing you if you didn't get with the program. Go ahead.
In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice.
So now, what are the overseers? Where are the overseers today? Because you probably don't think you got overseers assigned to you. Who are your overseers today? Shh, this is supposed to be overseeing in righteousness. Who are the overseers you got? Who do your enemies got as overseers over you? Huh? Your pastors and the police for sure. Who else being chosen that's been chosen to oversee you? A lot of y'all think this whole job situation is just by chance, and you think like, oh, they just happen to get the job. Not in every case. You got specific people chosen for these jobs and these companies to be overseers of you. Trust me. You don't believe that, but trust me. Because some of them, they dumb as a box of nails. You know what I'm saying? You're like, why was this person chosen to lead? And you wondering, that's because these people, they have purpose. So don't think just on any given situation and job and company that it's just some random people that just so happen to get the job. No. There's something that they are trying to maintain. And some of y'all think one day you're going to get that spot, and you probably may never get that spot. Now, I'm not saying, because some of y'all are in job situations where you could work your way up. So I'm not saying that you're going to be like, does I want to say the heck with all of these jobs? That ain't what I'm saying. But just know that. Same way that overseers were being set up back then, overseers are still set up to this day. We got and at what age do we start having overseers? Some of y'all don't even understand. Before that, you had overseers from the very beginning. You know, when your mama had to go back to work, and they sent you to whatever the daycare, because some of us was blessed to be in good situations with people that we know, but a lot of us we ended up having to resort to people that we didn't know, right? And this is some of your children's first teachers. And then, of course, the schools, we know how that go down, what your children learn and what they're subjected to, the influences that they're subjected to. You got plenty of overseers, trust me, because if anything, the people that are responsible for the minds, and not only the minds in regards to academics, because that's what they sell you on. That's to make you more comfortable. Yeah, my kids is here in school to learn. Long as they learn and they doing good, let me see that report card. That report card better be good. You didn't really care about them A's and S's and U's, and you didn't really care about that. You care about that A, B, C, D, and that F. That's what you care about because that's what you was taught to care about. You ain't nothing in life if you don't do good in this regard. Now, here's the thing. What influences are those kids being subjected to? What influences were you subjected to during your tenure as a student in school? They understood more than what you understood, that was a perfect opportunity to indoctrinate you as they saw fit. And a big part of who you are as an adult right now is still because of that you went through and all those things that you learned that you still fighting today. Heavy, man. Go ahead and read.
Verse 52, then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, everyone that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land.
Go ahead.
And
what they do?
and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor.
And there's really history with this. There's history of our people that actually wanted to serve the Most High, wanted to do the right thing, that literally was running through caves and catacombs, being amongst dead corpses, just to try to keep these laws, to try to keep Sabbaths and so on and so forth. And here we are, we got the ability to do it for the moment. And a lot of us take it for granted, yeah. And we be half-stepping. Why would they go through all of that? Was it just to disconnect us from the Most High, but was it also to disconnect us from just being a nation? Because that's what made us who we were. That was a big part of who we are as a culture. You disconnect from that, what do you have left? Go ahead and read.
And drove, verse 54. Now the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altars and builded idol altars throughout the city.
Caslu is what month? Oh, there you go. The 9th month, which happens to be what? There you go. Pretty much December, late November, early December for the most part, which is around the time where you got what kind of celebrations in this world? They biggest celebration. Yep, there you go. Go ahead. They call that the holiday season. Yep. God, man, ain't nothing changed. Read.
And burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And when they had rent the places, and when they had rent in pieces the books of the law, which they had found, they burnt them with fire.
Burn them Bibles. And you won't even pick yours up hardly. Go ahead.
And wheresoever was found with any the book of the testament, or if any consented to the laws, the king consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death.
Put him to death. Put him to death. Go ahead.
Thus did they.
You a law keeper, and that's why that same energy is there. People don't even know where that energy come from. That's the same energy that Esau has kept in the world that becomes manifest amongst your own people now. That's why they feel some kind of way. You can do whatever, but as soon as you talk about you keeping the law, they got some kind of energy towards you. You trying to figure out, you taking back because you trying to figure out where's this coming from? Why is it such a problem when I'm talking about I keep the law? Because that was a death sentence. Read.
Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities.
Go ahead.
Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised.
Cause your kid to be circumcised. Well, what you do that for? Are you trying to keep the covenant? You trying to make sure that your kid have something as a token to remember who they are. That's dangerous. We got to get rid of you and get rid of the evidence. Get rid of the kid. Is that not heavy? You just gave birth not too many months ago. About what? They about 2 now, your babies? To 3 boys. A shot. Imagine somebody in that time, you got 3 boys and they all got to go. You can't even imagine that. Can't even imagine that. Go ahead, read.
At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised, and they hanged the infants about their necks.
So what do you think? What do you think a lot of the women was opting to do? You think they were circumcising their kids? There was a lot of them that was like, well, and I bet you it's Israelite reasoning. I could circumcise them later. Go ahead.
And they hanged the infants about their necks and rifled their houses.
And you know what that was. It wasn't like, okay, a quick death for you to sit up here and watch them hang your baby, you know you going through it. You seeing your baby struggling, trying to. Can you imagine that? So what was that gonna make all the other women say? Oh, you know what? Yeah, put that fear in them. I don't want no parts of that. Go ahead.
And slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing.
Because that was a big thing still. A lot of people, man, we sit up here, people that talk that stuff. Well, you really think God gonna do something about me eating this, blah, blah, blah. He don't care about that. And then, you know, all that nonsense, man, our people was dying rather than eat that unclean stuff. Read.
Howbeit, also like in verse 63, wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died. And there was very great wrath upon Israel.
This is how we became estranged. Here's another way. Go to the book of Joshua, chapter 22. Eat them. And not only our so-called white man, let's remember the other part. Our own people. Yep. No, it's crazy. In the world, before they come into this truth, they want to protect the white man, and then when they come into the truth, they want to protect every Israelite and negate the fact that you got all these wicked Israelites as well. Joshua 22. We're not going to read 10 through 30 because I want to get to some stuff, but let's start off 22 and 10.
The book of Joshua, chapter 22 and verse 10. And when they came into the borders of Jordan that are in the land of Canaan, the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh built there an altar by Jordan, a great altar to see to. And the children of Israel heard say, behold, the children of Reuben and the children of Gad and the half tribe of Manasseh have built an altar over against the land of Canaan in the borders of Jordan at the passage of the children of Israel. And when the children of Israel heard of it, the whole congregation of the children of Israel gathered themselves together at Shiloh to go up to war against them. And the children of Israel...
To do what?
To go up to war against them.
And who are we talking about? Israel fighting Israel? No way. Not Israel. No way. Can't be. No. Israel was going to go to fight Israel? Has this ever happened before in the scripture? Go ahead, read.
And the children of Israel sent unto the children of Reuben, and to the children of Gad, and to the half tribe of Manasseh, into the land of Gilead, Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest, and with him 10 princes.
Hey, drop down real quick. Verse 17.
Verse 17. Is the iniquity of Peor too little for us, from which we are not cleansed unto this day?
He was referring to something that had already happened when they were serving idols. They were serving, I believe it's Baal, Peor. And it was like, is that not enough? Y'all don't remember that history? And what happened to Israel because of that? Read.
Although there was a plague in the congregation of the Lord, but that ye must turn away this day from following the Lord, and it will be.
Listen to what it says. This is important right here. And it will be.
Seeing ye rebelled today against the Lord.
Seeing that ye rebelled today against the Lord. Go ahead.
That tomorrow.
What's going to happen?
He will be wroth with the whole congregation of Israel.
Is that right? They understood this? Say that one more time. So in other words, let me get this straight. They understood that by a couple of tribes sinning, that it would more than likely cause for what to happen? The whole nation, all of the tribes would have to suffer for the actions of a couple They understood that. How come we have a hard time understanding that today? Because we don't really see ourselves as a nation. We don't understand what it means to be a nation. We don't operate as a nation. That's why. And you constantly tell yourself something is dangerous. Well, I'm doing my part. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. Shh. Man. What's how I gonna look out? Okay, you better hope. You better hope. Because they understood that could smell trouble for everybody. A few could make it hard on us. We tell certain stories and we say them, and it's like, you know, it's like people, Jake's is numb to it. You know, the garment, what was that? Lacan? Yeah. Drop down to verse 24 real quick.
Verse 24. And if we have not rather done it for the fear of this thing, saying, in time to come your children might speak unto our children, saying.
Now this is the part that I really wanted to get to. This is their reasoning. They was like, look, we building an altar, but we're building an altar not for the reasons you thinking. We ain't building this altar to make sacrifices. We building this altar so that this won't happen. Read top of 24.
And if we have not rather done it for the fear of this thing, saying, in time to come your children might speak unto our children, saying, what have ye to do with the Lord God of Israel?
What you got to do with the Lord of God of Israel? You ain't Israel. You ain't one of us. Is this still happening in Israel? Watch this. Read.
For the Lord hath made Jordan a border between
what?
us. A border.
A what?
A border.
Boy, we stay in California right now. What's right below California? A what? A border. But we understand, because you done heard it a couple of times here at True Nation, that before that border existed, what? Where you living at right now was a part of Mexico. All of this is Mexico all the way up north. This is all a part of Mexico. Then they created a border. And what did that do? Watch this, read.
For the Lord hath made Jordan a border between us and you, ye children of Reuben and children of Gad. Ye have no part in the Lord. So shall your children make our children cease from fearing the Lord.
So we got our nation is below the border, and that's the attitude that they understood that, but we don't get because we don't read our history enough. And that's the mindset a lot of us have. There's a border between us, and it happened both ways. Those above the border will take on the mindset like those that's below the border need to stay where they at. They don't belong. And then some that's below the border take on the mindset like, I'll take the opportunity, but you ain't one of us. We ain't the same. All because of a border. They understood that. At that time, that border was water. But this is why you got to understand how important this is. These are the things that allowed us to be able to lose our way as a nation and not recognize and understand how important it was and how to function as a nation. Things that we fight with even to this day. We're in the same ghettos and the same situations, and to this day we fight about this. Read.
Therefore we said, let us now prepare to build us an altar, not for burnt offering, nor for sacrifice, but that it may be a witness between us and you and our generations after us, that we might do the service of the Lord before him with our burnt offerings and with our sacrifices and with our peace offerings, that your children may not say to our children in time to come, ye have no part in the Lord. Therefore said we.
That's a plague too. And that's been plaguing us as a people for too long. And that's something that I don't want to continue to have as we gotta check that and right that wrong. And it's in regards to how we think. It's in regards to how we think as a nation of people. Because the way we've been thinking has been a corruption of what we've learned all our lives. A lot of people carry that into the truth. We carry that same mentality. I got to hold on to my culture. Hold on to what culture? We Israelites. Now, it's okay. You can bring some of the things that you got that you know that's fine to you. It's no problem. Bring that in, cool. But understanding that we ain't holding on to what we thought was our culture. We got an opportunity to help contribute to this Israelite culture that we're rebuilding. Makes sense? Go from there. Go to the book of Acts, chapter 1. So unfortunate because I know I'm not going to be able to get to everything I want, but I'm going to probably pivot in a minute. Yeah, sometimes it works like this, sometimes it don't. Sometimes it, Acts chapter 1, verse 12.
The book of Acts, chapter 1, and verse 12.
Yep.
Then returned they unto Jerusalem from the Mount of Olivet, which is from Jerusalem a Sabbath's day journey. And when they were come in, they went up into the upper room, where abode both Peter and James and John and Andrew, Philip and Thomas, Bartholomew and Matthew, James the son of Alphaeus, and Simon Zelotes, and Judas the brother of James.
Because it wasn't the same Judas Iscariot, and there was another Judas, and this particular Judas is the brother of James. All right. So that's the thing. From verse 12 it says, then returned they unto Jerusalem from the mount called Olives, which is from Jerusalem a Sabbath's day journey. And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room. Right? So where were we at to kind of understand what it looked like? A lot of times when we read this, we'll read chapter 2 and we don't really fully understand what's going on, what happened, who was there, right? Go ahead, read verse 14.
These all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication with the women.
So what does it mean when it says these all continue with one accord in prayer and supplication? What happened to where they had to continue? Why would it mention they all continued? What happened? What happened right before this? Mm-hmm. Yahushua had just been crucified. Mm-hmm. Go ahead. 14 one more time, please.
These all continued with one accord in prayer and supplication with the women, and Mary, the mother of Yahushua, and with his brethren.
I was telling you everybody that was with him, verse 15.
And in those days Peter stood up in the midst of the disciples and said, the number of names together were about 120.
So they all stayed together, and it was about that many of them. And they were together, right? Drop down to verse 20.
Verse 20. For it is written in the book of Psalms, let his habitation be desolate, and let no man dwell therein, and his bishopric let another take.
And that's talking about Judas. When you read right above that, it's talking about Judas Iscariot. And it says, let his what?
And his let his habitation be desolate, and let no man dwell therein, and his bishopric let another take.
So what does it mean when it says his bishopric let another man take? So Judas was being set up to be a what? A bishop. The apostles, they were bishops. They were the overseers of all of Israel, of the righteous of Israel. Not necessarily according to the government, but according to the Most High, his government under Yahushua. Right? So now Judas did what he did, and they had to set up somebody else to fulfill that office because it was a 12th spot available. Now watch, let's see what happened. Read. Yep.
Wherefore of these men which have companied with us all the time that the Lord Yahushua went in and out among us, beginning from the baptism of John unto that same day that he was taken up from us, must one be ordained to be a witness with us of his resurrection. And they appointed two, Joseph, called Barsabas, who was surnamed Justus.
So these men, they weren't a part of the 12, but they were around. You know, remember it was how many it said? There you go. So it was quite a few of them. So it was others that wasn't necessarily in that mix, but they were close enough. And it was like, out of these two guys, these are the two best candidates right here. We got to choose somebody. Go ahead.
And Matthias. And they prayed and said, Thou, Lord, which knowest the hearts of all men, show whether of these two thou hast chosen, that he may take part of this ministry and apostleship, from which Judas by transgression fell, that he might go to his own place. And they gave forth their lots, and the lot fell upon Matthias, and he was numbered with the 11 apostles.
So that's the one that they chose. But they understood it was ministry, right? And it was an office. The ministry was, because ministry is talking about servitude. It was to serve the people. That office was to serve the people as a leader. All right, then go to chapter 2. Chapter 2 and 1.
Verse 1. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, they were all with one accord in one place.
And where was that one place? We already read about it. Go ahead.
And suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled the house where they were sitting.
So a lot of times we really don't know where this to. We probably have our own imaginations, like they was maybe on this big field or something. It talks about they were actually inside. That came through that house. Go ahead.
And there appeared unto them cloven tongues, like as of fire, and it sat upon each of them.
You ever play video games and you have like the icon on top of somebody and tell you what kind of power they operating in? Yeah, go ahead.
And they were filled with the Holy Ghost and began to speak with other tongues, as the Spirit gave them utterance. And there were dwelling at Jerusalem Jews, devout men, out of every nation.
Out of
under
what?
Heaven.
Out of every
nation.
Go ahead.
Under heaven.
Uh-huh.
Now when it was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying one to another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own tongue, wherein we were born? Parthians and Medes and Elamites and dwellers of Mesopotamia and in Judea and Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia and Pamphylia, in Egypt, and in the parts of Libya and Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians. We do hear them speak in our tongue and wonderful works of God.
Because, see, the thing that you got to understand, it ain't really too much different than what it is today. People be in a heartbeat, they ain't going to recognize you as an Israelite off the top. They're going to say, oh, you a what? You from where? You a Filipino, you a this, you a that. But these are Israelites. They just so happen to be, in all these different nations, and they would, be call themselves of these nations. So yeah, more than two. It became a situation where, it was two kingdoms at one point and started being recognized as two nations, two different nations of people, right? But it went even beyond that. It got to a point where everybody was like, well, I'm this, I'm that. I'm Jamaican, I'm Mexican, I'm Guatemalan, I'm Ecuadorian, I'm this, I'm that. And now where are we at today? Are we removed from that yet? Are we still on the same nonsense? Like, who made you a judge to know who's Israel and who's not? And we got to check ourselves why we feel some type of way sometimes about, like, go ahead, read.
Verse 12. And they were all amazed, saying one to another, What meaneth this? Others mocking said, These men are full of new wine. But Peter, standing up with the 11, lifted up his voice and said unto them, Ye men of Judea, and all ye that dwell at Jerusalem, Be this known unto you, and hearken to my words.
So what was happening with Peter at this moment? This is showing you how they was able to get things back on track. It's crazy. This is showing how they was able to get stuff back on track. This is what it looks like. So Peter, remember, Yahweh Shah said, Peter, you going to be that guy. So Peter at that moment, he stood up, and they were all together, but it was some others in their company, and he had to let it be known. They start cracking their little jokes, and same thing that Israel do now. Israel, you do something that somebody in Israel feel like, oh, that ain't the norm, that ain't like even within, that ain't the one West way or whatever the case may be. And before you know it, you got a whole problem. Peter was like, hold on. Go ahead and read.
For these are not drunken as ye suppose, seeing it is but the third hour of the day. But this is that which was spoken by the prophet Joel. And it shall come to pass that in the last day, saith God, I will pour out of my spirit upon all flesh. And your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, and your young men shall see visions, and your old men shall dream dreams. And on my servants and on my handmaidens I will pour out in those days of my spirit, and they shall prophesy. And I will show wonders in the heavens. So like I will show wonders in heaven above, and signs in the earth beneath, blood and fire, and vapor of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood.
And that's the reason why a lot of people, and it's not like there's nothing to it, but people got to understand, when they say, they had the eclipse, and they're like, hold on, you do know that there are a lot of eclipses that happen throughout. I forgot the number, but yes, a lot of eclipses, but there are not necessarily as many total eclipses. But even with the total eclipse, you can't necessarily see it from everywhere, but there's certain places where you can see it from. We just so happen to have had a total eclipse here in the U.S. just, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. I think the next eclipse is set to be in 2044. So when they hear situations like this, which people got to understand, because they be like, oh, the sun shall be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great day. Oh, you know what time it is. Like, before doesn't mean an hour before, days, or a week before. It's just giving you like a heads up. All right, pay attention. Know that you better pay attention. You better have your head on the swivel and be mindful that these things are coming, versus like just being off into whatever it is that you off into, and you're not being mindful, and you're not making sure that you got your house in order. All right, that was really all I needed from that, because I'm short on time. I want to go into something real quick, and this is not a moment to try to reprove. This is a moment I feel like it's just needed right now, and I wanted to hit this. This is a part of my lesson, but I'm a default go to this. Go to Ecclesiastes 25. Yeah. Ecclesiastes 25, and let's get verse 19, and then I want to drop to verse 24.
The book of Sirach, chapter 25 and verse 19. All wickedness is but little to the wickedness of a woman. Let the portion of a sinner fall upon her.
So now, we've heard this before, and we're like, man, here you go again on the women. Some people feel like that. Raise your hand if you feel like that sometimes, be honest. All right. Now drop down to verse 24.
Verse 24. Of the woman came the beginning of sin, and through her we all die.
And you done heard that one too. Now let me ask you a question. What do you take from this? Because this is like pretty heavy right here. What you don't take is this. This is what I want you to get from this. I think a lot of us miss this. This is very important. Go to 2nd Esdras, chapter 2. Second Esdras, chapter 2. Yep, start at verse 15.
The book of 2nd Esdras, chapter 2 and verse 15.
Uh-huh.
Mother, embrace thy children, and bring them up with gladness. Make their feet as fast as a pillar, For I have chosen thee, saith the Lord.
Now that last part, that last line, for what?
For I have chosen thee, saith the Lord.
So I'm gonna take it bootleg church for a second. This is what you gotta understand. And maybe I ain't said it. I'm gonna say it the way they say it, and maybe it'll mean something to you. When the Bible says, "For I have chosen thee," saith the Lord, what do you take that as? You ever heard preachers say, "You got a calling on your life"? This is the calling. And this is what a lot of us are missing. A lot of women are missing. A lot of Israel, period, is missing. So read it one more time, please. And then we're going to read from 15, and we're going to read it all the way down to 32. Go ahead.
Mother, embrace thy children and bring them up with gladness. Make their feet as fast as a pillar.
Bring them up with gladness. Embrace them. Make their feet as fast as pillars, meaning what? What's the attribute of a pillar?
It doesn't move.
How many of our kids, because some of y'all ain't been in this truth, but a little bit of time, some of y'all have been here for a while, and how many kids have you seen, quote unquote, in the truth, and when they get old enough to make their own decisions and get up out of Dodge, they out of here? So what does that say? What does that say to us? What are we learning from that? What are we learning from that? So how good of a job are we doing at embracing them, bringing them up with gladness, not bringing them up in weirdness and in shame? Think about that. And how good of a job are we doing at making their feet fast where they don't go anywhere? We're not worried. We know that they're solid. They're going to be pillars of their community, pillars of their organization, pillars of their nation. Watch this. Read verse 16.
And those that be dead will I raise up again from their places and bring them out of the graves. For I have known my name in Israel.
Now, this is very important. A lot of us, we missed this. We didn't know what that was talking about. There's two references. This reference is a little bit different from the latter reference. It says, and those that be dead will I raise up again from their places and bring them out of the graves. For I have known my name in Israel. What is this talking about? This is giving us a major heads up that we've missed. What is it saying? Anybody? I'll explain in just a minute. Forget it, I'll tell you. What? Say it again.
Prophets.
What prophets? We're going to go there because here's the thing that you got to understand. Matter of fact, I'm going to go there real quick. This is chapter 2, but what was said in chapter 1? Go to chapter 1 real fast, 33.
Second Ezra chapter 1 and verse 33. Thus saith the Almighty Lord, your house is desolate. I will cast you out as the wind doth stubble, and your children shall not be fruitful, for they have despised my commandment and done the thing that is evil before me. Your houses will I give to a people that shall come, which not having heard of me, yet shall believe me, to whom I have showed no signs, yet they shall do that I have commanded them. They have seen no prophets, yet they shall call their sins to remembrance and acknowledge them.
Who is this talking about? But who in particular? Us. It's supposed to be talking about you. Listen to what it say. Read.
Verse 37. I take to witness the grace of the people to come, whose little ones rejoice in gladness. And though they have not seen me with bodily eyes, yet in spirit they believe the thing that I say. And now, brother, behold, what glory, and see the people that cometh from the east, unto whom I will give for leaders Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Hosea, Amos, and Micah, Joel, Obadiah, and Jonas, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi, which is called also an angel of the Lord.
Now, does it make more sense? So now, it ain't something I'm just putting together and piecing together. Drop back down, verse 16.
And those that be dead will I raise up again from their places and bring them out of the graves. For I have known my name in Israel.
Go ahead.
Fear not, thou mother of the children, for I have chosen thee, saith the Lord.
Why does he keep saying, I have chosen you? He's telling you in the same way that he chose Mary to raise up Yahushua, he's telling you, he said, all of y'all going to have that in common with your dear sister, your foremother, because you're going to get an opportunity. He said, I'm bringing all these same leaders through your womb. Watch this, read.
For thy help will I send my servants Isaiah and Jeremiah.
He said, I'm going to give you some help. It's going to be some brothers. I'm going to send some brothers to help you, to get your mind right, to teach you what they need to teach you to get you right, to tell you what you got the standard that you got to rise up to. Go ahead.
After whose counsel I have sanctified and prepared for thee 12 trees laden with diverse fruits, and as many fountains flowing with milk and honey, and 7 mighty mountains, whereupon they grow roses and lilies, whereby I will fill thy children with joy.
He said, I'm going to fill your children with joy. Read.
Do right to the widow, judge for the
fatherless. So now he's giving you some instruction. He said, it's going to be widows amongst you, those that don't have husbands. Don't stank eye them, feel some type of way and treat them some kind of way. He says, do right to them. Go ahead.
Do right to the widow. Judge for the fatherless.
Judge for the fatherless. You're going to have some kids that don't have a father. You need to be there. You need to judge on their behalf. Don't look at them like, oh, that's shame on them, and as long as I take care of mine. What he's telling you is you're responsible for creating the community that we're going to need to raise up these children and these prophets. You're responsible for that, and he's teaching you, telling you exactly how you have to act with women that don't have husbands. You know, various situations that happen where women end up not with the husband. When you have children that don't have their fathers, you got to still be a part of that community that's there to collectively raise them, and not just raise them any kind of way, not just kind of let them do what they do, but to be a very instrumental part of making sure that they're learning and that they're growing up in a joyous environment.
God.
That things are being reinforced to them. They're being guided properly. Go ahead.
Give to the poor, defend the orphan, clothe the naked, heal the broken.
So
and the
now
weak.
he said, give to the poor, defend the orphan. It can't just be about you and you doing good. I got the money. I deserve. So many women. I deserve this. I deserve that. Forget what you think you deserve. When you got those that are in need, them funds need to go, and your efforts need to go to making sure that they taken care of. Defend the orphan, those that ain't got parents, or those that parents ain't doing what they supposed to be doing, and it's like they orphan. Step in, be there. Or elder sisters teaching the younger sisters, showing them what it is to be a good wife and a good mother. Clothe the naked. Make sure those that don't have, make sure y'all collectively come together so that those that don't have. Verse 21.
Heal the broken and the weak.
Uh-huh.
Laugh not a lame man to scorn. Defend the maimed, and let the blind man come into the sight of my clearness.
You see that? All of these things, it takes the collective. Go ahead.
Keep the old and young within thy walls.
Keep the old and the young. It's your job. You know, that mindset, the mother-in-law, blah, blah, blah. It's your job. It says the old and the young. Y'all supposed to be there to make sure that the community is protected, and y'all coming in together to make sure all of them are taken care of. Thus saith the Lord. Go ahead, verse 23.
Wheresoever thou findest the dead, take them and bury them, and I will give thee the first place in my resurrection.
Go ahead.
Abide still, O my people, and take thy rest, for thy quietness shall come. Nourish thy children.
And when they talk about whosoever thou findest the dead, wheresoever thou findest the dead, go read the book of Tobit, what he was on. Said the same mindset that you guys should be in. This is what's going to bring us back. This is what's going to allow us to cultivate who we're going to be as we get ready to go back into the land. That makes sense? Go ahead and read.
Nourish thy children, O thou good nurse. Establish their feet.
See, I'm not here to tell you. I'm not here to bash you. The Bible says that you're a good nurse. It's something that just got to be stirred up and switched on so you get it. Sisters, how many of y'all can receive that? Go ahead, read.
Establish their feet.
Establish their feet. You got to establish these children's feet, meaning it can't just be kind of parenting from a distance and on and off. You got to make sure you're so hands-on that you understand how important it is to make sure every step of the way these children are being guided. They got the structure that they need, but also it talks about enjoy, because you ain't there to be one of them old classic yelling mamas and everything. Correct with understanding. You know what I'm saying? Figure out those things that you need to be. Somebody said this, and it was so real. It was like, how many of y'all like being yelled at? And it kind of set me back when I heard it. It was like one thing that's important, a lot of people don't realize, a lot of adults, said your kids early in the morning and you yelling at them, fussing at them, getting out the house. He said you setting the tone for their day. And you stressing them out. Yeah, they stressed out. He said, as an adult, you can't function like that. So you need to take the opportunity to be wise enough to say, okay, how am I to build this kid versus just being frustrated and just kind of yelling and saying stuff. So a lot of us are guilty of having a moment, so we frustrated, or we mean good for them. We want good, so we just own them. But is it really helpful? How helpful is it? You know what I'm saying? So something to think about. Establish their feet. Go ahead, verse 26.
As for the servants whom I have given thee, there shall not one of them perish, for I will require them from among thy number. Be not weary, for when the day of trouble...
Now that's heavy right there. Hold on. As for the servants whom I have given thee, he's talking about who? He's talking about them prophets. He said what?
As for the servants whom I have given thee, there shall not one of them perish.
He said, I'm going to make sure none of them die. Ain't nothing going to happen. Ain't going to be an early death for none of them that's meant to lead this nation. He said, I'm going to make sure they're taken care of. He said, but you got to do your part. Read.
I will require them from among thy number.
But he said, I'm going to require them from among thy number, meaning you responsible for them. Like if on your watch something almost happened, he said, it's going to be on you, and I'm going to require that of you. Read.
Be not weary, for when the day of trouble and heaviness cometh, others shall weep and be sorrowful, but thou shalt be merry and have abundance.
This is the perk. He says, because you're doing this for me on behalf of Israel. He said, I'm going to make sure that you okay, you taken care of. Because a lot of us, we always worried about, but what about this? But what? And we so worried, we want to make it better. I ain't making enough money. I ain't doing this. You focus on making more money and stuff, but you're not taking care of that which the Most High has entrusted you with. You missing the mark. You focused on the wrong thing. Focus on this. This is what he's saying. He said, I'm going to take care of the rest. I'm going to make sure you taken care of. Go ahead.
The heathen shall envy thee, but they shall be able to do nothing against thee, saith the Lord. My hand shall cover thee, so that thy children shall not see hell.
You see that? He said, I'm going to safeguard you. I'm going to make sure that them kids, I'm going to do my part to make sure that they get what they need to get, but I need you to do your part to make sure that they, get what they need to get from you and that whole experience. Go ahead.
Be joyful, O thou mother.
Be what?
Be joyful, O thou mother.
So he telling you off top as a mother that you're not supposed to be the opposite of joyful, which is, oh my God, it's such a burden. I got all these kids and I got to do this. I got to do that. It's not the mindset you want to be in, that he wants you in. The Most High said, be joyful.
God.
Was that an option?
No.
He's telling you what to do, what to be, how it's going to work. Be joyful, O thou mother, with what?
With thy children.
For what?
For I will deliver thee, saith the Lord.
He said, I'm going to deliver you. Go ahead.
Remember thy children that sleep, for I shall bring them out of the sides of the earth and
so
show
now that's
mercy.
A different type of reference. He's talking about, a lot of our women have suffered miscarriages. You know what I mean? Israelite women suffer miscarriages and losses of babies, stillborn, so on and so forth. He said, and you still got a spot in your heart for them children. He said, I'm going to take care of them too. I got you on that. Look at the type of God we serve. Giving you the plate. Man. Go ahead.
Remember thy children that sleep, for I shall bring them out of the sides of the earth, and show mercy unto them. For I am merciful, saith the Lord Almighty. Embrace thy children until I come, and show mercy unto them. For my wells run over, and my grace shall not fail.
You see that? That's my message to y'all today. Go on real quick. I'm almost done. Ecclesiasticus 11:28 and 29.
Sirach, chapter 11, and verse 28. Judge none blessed before his death.
You see that? The Bible says, judge none blessed before their death. Read.
For a man shall be known in his children.
A man shall be what?
A man shall be known in his children.
A man shall be known in his children. In other words, that means what? You're going to be known by how your children turn out. So that means you got a responsibility to make sure what? You said what? Yeah, as men and it's talking about men and women. You're responsible for making sure that your children get the best rearing that you can possibly give them. And what you want to have at the end of the day, you want to have children that remain in the covenant, that are an asset to the nation. And when you don't have that, then you're going to be held responsible for that. You do know that, right? According to the word. So are we willing to gamble and just kind of so you in the best. Now here's the thing, even in regards to some of us, we didn't know the truth in our kids, but where your kids now, did they end up shooting? You did some things right. A lot of things you can look at yourself, right? And you can identify things that your parents may not even be here anymore, but you can identify things that your parents instilled in you and your upbringing that help you to get to the place where you at right now, to be devout and to step up and serve the Most High, right or wrong. And then what he's saying is every generation there's that responsibility. Them parents, that's one thing that we always got to remember. We got to be mindful of. That's one of the reasons why it's important to take our jobs as parents, as fathers and mothers very seriously. Now, also, it says this on verse 29. This is in regards to being a wife. I wanted to kind of say this. Read verse 29.
Verse 29. Bring not every man into thine house.
And this goes both ways for men and women. Now, when we think house, a lot of times we think our own physical house, right? But that's not the only definition of house. It could be your body too, but more so we talking about the house. If we talk about the house of Shamar, we talking about what? The family of Shamar, right? So when it says, bring not every man into thine house, you can't bring everybody into your family. Sometimes you marry people that you have no business bringing into your family, and now you got to deal with it. Why? It says for what?
For the deceitful man hath many trains.
They be having many trains, and now it's all this other stuff that you're dealing with. You got to be mindful of that. So the scripture give you the heads up. But it's for us to do our part and to try to make things right. I have more, but I'll deal with that another time. I will say this. Ecclesiasticus 4:3. We want to be careful of this as men. And I'm going to end it right here.
The book of Sirach, chapter 4, and verse 3.
Let me get there. Hold on. Yep. Because some people, it goes around sometimes like, man, they be getting on the women. There's good reason why women become a focus, because the Bible tells us that the women are a focal point in us getting things right. That's the reason why. So don't feel like y'all getting picked on, please. But this is also something that goes along with that. Read this real quick, 4 and 3.
Verse 3. Add no more trouble to an heart that is vexed.
That's not to say to relieve you of things that you should be doing as a woman. That's not why I'm going here. But what it's saying is we got to be careful as men not to add more trouble to a heart that is vexed, meaning, the plan sometimes that shouldn't be. And for that, you know what I'm saying, Most High willing, I pray that we can fix that and get things right, because it shouldn't be a poking and a kind of a prodding at you, that shouldn't be the case, but we got to get it together. The same way I'm going to deal with any man and being like, hey, you saying you on point, you acting like you on point, and you not on point. It's going to be the same thing with the women, and it ain't no different. And don't feel like, oh, it's different with the women. No. Because the first part that I went to, remember, in Ecclesiastes 25, you're missing your opportunity to make things right. Whether you like it or not, the Most High didn't just choose you to pick on you as a woman and say, oh, I'm going to make you subservient to your, it's not how it went. You got an opportunity to get things right. He's saying this is your opportunity to be redeemed. So let's look at it as an opportunity to be redeemed. It should be something that we want to do. We should want to see our nation win. We should want to, as the women should want to be there as wives and as mothers to go above and beyond. All praise be to the Heavenly Father.